I've been waiting 6 months to do this video, and I finally have all of the pieces where I can make a coherent video about my partnership with Don from Harris Brothers Auctions. We've done 3 massive deals so far where we bought massive raw book collections, and in this video we're going to break down the process of the first one, which started back in March. It's taken 6 months to finally wrap up, and we're not even going to touch the other 2 because those are still totally in the works. But we do have all of the pieces for the first deal to show what goes into buying a massive raw book collection and selling it. It's going to be a fascinating video if you're at all interested in the business side of selling comics, but also just as a collector, if you're curious on how to value your comic book collection. And we're going to actually get to meet Don, and he'll explain more about valuing collections because he's much more of an expert than I am in the field as far as massive raw book collections, which is why this partnership is really just a match made in heaven. He's somebody that I absolutely trust. He's somebody that I trust wiring hundreds of thousands of dollars based on, an agreement. Usually just starts with a verbal agreement. We always back it up with paper agreements, but to have somebody that you can trust like that with huge sums of money and that he's right on the money. Like this first deal, what you'll see is that he's fair. You can trust him in your house. In fact, I'll put up some B-roll on the screen here of the third collection, just a little tease. A lot of these books are going to come through my shop, but he currently has these books in his possession. The collector said, just take my collection with you, take it back to your shop, go through it, and tell me what you can pay me for it. That's how much this collector trusted him. And so we actually did seal the deal on these books. We are going to get those books. But I just wanted to paint the picture of, the type of guy that we're dealing with here, because to have somebody that you can trust like that with your comics and with money and to be fair is just worth its weight in gold. And I'm just so thrilled to have this option because I just want to paint the scene real quick on how we ended up here. So I spend about 60 hours a week just processing slab collections and selling graded comic books. And that entails everything from the leads coming in and me, pricing the collection and shooting the offer to actually receiving them when the offer is accepted, to photographing them. I have somebody that helps actually list them, but then I have to send out the emails and then they sell. Then I have to print the packing slips, pull the orders, and actually pack and ship them. And that whole process takes about 60 hours a week. And there's just no room in there for raw books, for selling raw books. And it's partially intentionally by design. I currently don't have any employees because just the stress, it's kind of a conundrum. I need help so badly, but I don't have time to hire new help. So anyways, without going down that rabbit hole, I'm happy with the way it is, especially with this new partnership with Don, because what was happening was I would have to just pass on raw book collections, on good raw book leads. I would just have to pass on it. And so I mentioned in a video about 6 months ago that I was looking for somebody who I can send these raw book leads to, and that they would be able to value the collection, say how much is the fair market value, say how much should we offer for the collection, what's the max amount we should offer, how much we can expect to sell it for, and how long that would take. I needed all of those things. And I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people, I think, wanted to be able to do what Don does, but Don just stood out as an absolute expert in this. He's like, I do this all the time. And as you'll see right here, he nailed it on all of these deals and being able to negotiate the deal, going to actually pick it up. And we'll get into some of those details here in just a little bit. So while I got you, we have some awesome new inventory at brycecomics.com. By the time you're watching this, there will be a whole new set of slabs that are listed. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off and sign up for that newsletter while you're there. It's where you get entered to win a free slab each and every month that you stay subscribed, constantly getting new inventory in. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment and like this video, you're entered to win a monthly giveaway here on the YouTube channel as well. We have done a lot of business in the past for the past couple years, just like, on some big books and some other things. But this was the first time we reached out and said, I want to throw my hat in the ring on the raw book collection thing. And I said, great, I've got this raw book collection. So here it is. This was the one back in March. This is the Frank collection. Frank was an absolute joy to work with. Just one of the one of the coolest dudes. I've kept in touch with him a little bit. You might remember this collection as the one that had the Platinum Spider-Man #1 that Frank actually won in a Wizard magazine contest. It was shipped to him in the mail. He kept it for decades, and then it came back a 9.8, and that was one of the books in this collection. But Frank reached out to me and sent me this list, and as you'll see right here, look at this little thing in the top corner. It's not even moving. That's how many pages and pages and pages of comic books that he had. And you'll see like this whole run here of Alpha Flight. And one of the things you'll notice is on the side where he puts the condition, they all say 9.8, 9.8. They're all raw, and he says they're all 9.8. Bless his heart, I mean, he's not a comic book grader, he's a collector. And in his mind, he's kept them in good shape, and it looks good. It's a 9.8. I have another friend like that in this hobby who has the biggest rose-colored glasses you'll ever see. Everything is like, man, I'm thinking this is a 9.8. He's like, you're looking at like an 8.5. Anyways, all that to say, this is part of the complication in valuing something is here you have a list. It's 17,500 comics, and they all say, almost all of them, some of the vintage ones have other grades, and they all say near mint. And we have the task as dealers to filter that, to read these conditions with a filter of what we know as common. Like we know that more realistically, if they're near mint, they're more realistically probably 9.2, 9.4 than 9.8. And occasionally you'll get a 9.8. But that's part of the task as a dealer. But as you can see, I mean, there's just no way I would have the time to value 17,500 raw books. Like I would just have to pass. But, the biggest book in here was an Amazing Spider-Man #1. So it's like there's good stuff in there. It's just the task of actually valuing it was too much, let alone going and picking it up. So Don did it. He valued it, and he spent the hours doing it, because the other kicker to this was this collection was in Texas, and Don was like, dude, I'm going to be there next week. I'll be in Texas next week picking up a different collection. I've already got a U-Haul. And by the way, he told me the story about getting these U-Hauls. He had one, it wasn't a U-Haul, it was a semi-truck that he rented because he had one massive collection and then these 17,000 books. And I think he texted me from the road or something in New York. Oh no, this was the second deal. The second deal was in New York City, and he was so weighted down in the semi truck that he was only able to go like 30 miles an hour, and he had to pull over and rent a second truck and distribute the weight because there was so much weight in these trucks. But that was the second deal. This first deal, he was able to get it. He probably still had a whole bunch of, labor going into actually picking this up, but he was already in Texas. He said, if we do this deal, I can add it to that truck. So here's how he broke it down. It looks like it's 17,500 books, about 70 to 75 long boxes. The PDF is 680 pages, approximately 26 books per page. I mean, you can just see how much work goes into this, and this is just ballparking. We're just trying to figure out a value of this thing to offer it. And he says, the attached list has my estimates on the top 70 books or so. So he went through everything and found the best books in there. And in my opinion, the top 70 books or so, in my opinion, the ASM you'll want to adjust because the only comps I found were slab copies. He goes on to say, this is how much money is in these books, and this is, you're going to get, there are approximately 60 to 80 silver early Bronze Age Spideys that are low to mid-grade, not on my estimate list, that are probably all in the 20 to 80 range, so there's about $2,000 you can get right there. So you'll see, this is the process, as you say, like, well, I can get X amount for this, X amount for this, X amount for this, and so Don spit out a final number. He said, absolute max offer you should make on this is $50,000. So at this point, he wants to be a part of it, but at this point, it was still just my lead, and we were just, feeling out this process of if we can work together. He said, absolute best you should pay is $50,000, not a penny more. He goes, I would be more comfortable if you got it for less, but this is how negotiations go, and this is exactly what I wanted, was these numbers to say, what is the walk away price? What is the more comfortable price? And because it all goes into the negotiation. So I reached out to Frank and I said, hey, I can offer $50,000, to which Frank said, that sounds fair, deal. And I go, oh crap, did I just buy $30,000 worth of comics and pay $50,000 for it? That is what happens every single time you buy a massive raw book collection. Is whenever they accept the deal, you start to panic and you think, I overpaid. So what helps me is to go back through the numbers. I go back through the list. I talk to Don again. I say, okay, I think we're good here. I see a path to success and I feel good about this thing. I sent the $50,000 actually directly to the seller, and Don picked him up and left with all the books. And then I had the seller send me the 70 books. So the way that the deal worked out was Don said, here's some different options. Option A, you get half, I get half. Option B, you get this, I get this. Option C, you get the 70 top books, and I get the other 17,430 books. But you get all the meat and potatoes, all of the easy money, and I get none of the easy money. And I said, I'd like to do that deal. He goes, really? And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I'd like to do. I mean, if you're offering to give me the easy money and you do all the bulk, like, let's do that. And he said, okay, let's do it. So Don ended up paying in this collection, he paid $28,000 and I paid $22,000, but I paid all of it up front to the collector. And then Don, we worked out some things where he sent me other books. I would always rather books than cash, like with, a little bit of a margin there, because books are as good as cash to me. So these are the books, and I'll see if I can put up on the screen me flipping through these books when they were raw. But we have the grade that was in the spreadsheet when it was sent to us, the grade that the collector, Frank, was saying it was. And since then, it's been about 6 months now, they're all gone. And so I have the final numbers for this whole deal. And so I have the actual grades, and a lot of them I sold raw, so I don't have grades and the numbers. So the first one here, I don't know why we gave it a comp of $15,000 for the ASM 1, because a graded 5.0 was worth $11,000. So I don't know why we comped this one at $15,000. We overvalued it. And you'll see that in the numbers. Like if we had accurately valued it, it would have been even more precise. And this is the biggest risk of all of it, though, is that what if it came back restored? Don is really good at checking for restoration, and he looked at the book, but man, there's always a chance that you miss something. And actually, some of these books, they were like in the $200 range. And obviously, I wouldn't expect Don to do a full restoration and completeness check on 17,000 books. But some of them did come back restored and qualified. The Giant Size X-Men 1 came back restored. The Hulk 180 came back qualified. And I think that was it. But it could have gone completely south. I could have been in the red if the ASM 1 had come back restored. But luckily, it didn't. I got $11,000 for it. I valued it at $15,000. We have a bunch of other ASM keys like Amazing Spider-Man 13, 15, 19, some early ones in there. Another one of the big ones, like the Giant Size X-Men 1, we valued it at $1,200 because it was about a 4.0, and a raw copy 4.0 was about $1,200 at the time. But after having it pressed and cleaned and graded, which all costs money, it came back restored and was only worth $700. So the big takeaway here, and the total numbers down at the bottom, is what we valued them at raw was $35,000. What we actually sold them for was $34,000, but there was all of this cost into selling them. So we didn't actually realize that. Let's just go over the numbers here. So, one of the things was a Malibu Sun 9.4. It was an Era edition, and we didn't realize that. So that was like an extra $2,000. Don and I split the money. I said, dude, this was the Era edition. How about, because we already worked out the deal. I'm like, I'll shoot you $1,000. I get $1,000. He said, great. So I sold some of them raw and whatnot for $3,250. This is what I sold the slabs for, the extra $1,000 for the Malibu, the discounts on the website, the fees from whatnot and credit card companies and the websites, the pressing fees, the grading fees, the shipping fees. When you factor all of that in, it comes out to my net was $31,681. So I paid $22,000 and I netted $31,600. So just under $10,000, and it took 6 months to do it. And I'm absolutely happy with this. And I want to have Don talk about his numbers. I think he's still in the red on it because what's interesting is the sentiment that you get from collectors, and it's totally understandable. But the sentiment from Frank was when he saw that the Platinum Spidey came back in '98, and he was super stoked, and he was like, "Man, I hope you crush it. I hope you triple your money, Bri." He was just such an awesome dude. But I knew that there wasn't even an outside chance that I would double my money, but the collector thinks, I hope you triple your money. And I think what the reason for that disparity between what collectors think their collections are worth and what, we can actually sell them for as dealers, I think people fail to understand how much time and resources go into the selling part, because you have the value part. I mean, the collection might be worth $100,000. That might be the fair market value of the books. But if it takes you 6 months to do it and you have 3 employees to do it, that might cost you $50,000. And so now your thing that's worth 100, it's really only worth 50 because it costs that much to get the 50, and then you're not even factoring in profit, because that's the thing that I'm not even factoring in here is my time. Yeah, I got a little less than $10,000, but it took 6 months to do it. I mean, I'm not doing it full time for 6 months, but a little work here, a little work here, selling and all that. So not in any way am I complaining. I'm totally happy with this deal. I wish I would have kept the Platinum Spidey, to be honest. But the reason I didn't keep it was because I was still in the red for all these months, and I thought, man, this is like a $3,000 book. How can I keep this? I haven't even made any money on this deal yet, so that's why I sold it. But I bring all these numbers up to show that I really like the way Don priced this thing, because he was fair. He was fair. He valued it at 35, and the big thing we were off on was the Amazing Spider-Man 1. If we would have actually came in at 11,000, then it would have been almost exactly, 31, a difference of 4,000. Look at that. It would have been almost exactly 35,000 to 31,000. A $4,000 difference. If we would have accurately priced the Amazing Spider-Man 1, he would have been spot on for what the books were worth. And that's and how much we could sell them for. So, and this is after filtering the fact that everything was a 9.8. So with that said, let's hop into Zoom and meet Don, and I want to have him talk a little bit more about pricing collections. Don, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. It has been a minute. It's this took place in March or April, didn't it?
Oh,
Something like
yeah.
that.
Yep. Yep. But I was going back through our emails, and we actually have emails from years ago of stuff that we've done just here and there, and then we connected in March about this deal. But why don't you just introduce yourself, introduce your business, maybe a little history you have with the
Yeah,
hobby, whatever you want to
for
say.
sure. Yep. So my name is Don Harris. My brother and I have a business that we started, I would say, about 22 years ago, called Harris Brothers Auctions. We started out as just like a full service mom and pop type auction house, dealt in art pottery and art glass and knickknacks and antique furniture and things like that. And probably about 5 years in, we've always kind of had a history in sports cards, because back when we were kids, my dad helped us open a sports card shop, and that ran until 2003, which is when we got into the auction business. We also always had a background in antiques and collectibles, but probably about 5 years into the run of the auction house, we started getting into comics more. And then I just had a guy who was a consignor and a customer first, who started, hey, you want to try some comic books? And that turned into blew up huge. We got really, really into it about 12, 13 years ago. So 2011, 12, same fella, he brought in like short boxes of really high grade Bronze Age stuff. He's like, have you ever thought about grading comics? I was, not really. I don't know a lot about it. He kind of explained the whole process to me. And we got hot and heavy into pressing and cleaning and grading and all that. It didn't start out, pressing and cleaning is kind of a more recent thing. But we've been grading comic books since probably about 2013. And pre-COVID, say 2017, 18, we probably were at our height. We were grading anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 books a year.
Jeez.
Just
Yep.
massive quantities, anything and everything, stuff that now I wouldn't dream about grading. And also during COVID, we kind of changed our auction house format. We used to be a live auction house that did simulcast for internet bidding, but when COVID happened, we were already kind of trending towards going to be internet only, and that kind of pushed us over the edge. And it was a good thing for us as far as that part of it. We went to just online only. The name of my auction house is Harris Brothers Auctions. We have a pretty good following. We're not Heritage or Comic Link, but we do a comic and pop culture type auction probably once a month. We use a platform called ProxyBid. You can pre-bid just like if you were on eBay. You can put in your max and it just goes for what it goes for. You might bid $100 and end up getting it for 70 or 80, or you can actually sit in while the lots are closing and bid in real time. So people do both. I also have a pretty large presence on eBay. We go under the ID Jaybird8325. We've been doing that for about 22 years. It's heavily focused on comics, vintage toys, modern toys, statues, sports cards, memorabilia, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I'll link all that stuff down below, you guys. I've bought stuff from you on ProxyBid, and I remember
Yeah.
I bought a first appearance of Iron Man, a TOS 39, and I got a great deal on it. So I'll link all that stuff up down below. We're living the dream, man. We get to sell cool stuff and call it a job. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is. We in like the comics and the uh, sports card part of it are just like a small part. They're the biggest two parts, but we deal in gas pumps and old porcelain signs, and we sell a lot of military relics, coins, a little bit of everything. And yeah, every day you never know what's going to walk in or what you might go see on the next, looking at the next collection or whatever. It's always interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this Frank deal here. So at this point in the video, I've already talked about my numbers, which I'm not sure if I shared this with you, but my total numbers were 22,000 in, 31,681 out, which is about $9,000. But I didn't put in here time or labor, and
Gotcha.
so if I would have put time or labor as 2,200, which is what you put in, it's kind of crazy. Our numbers would both be 7,000 something.
Right.
And
That just dawned on me. I haven't seen your numbers before, so that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, so it's almost exactly equitable. But of course,
Yeah.
you put in a lot more work. I mean, you sold 14,400 books. I sold 70 books. And
Right.
but we just have different businesses, I mean, you've
Absolutely.
got, yeah, you have staff, you have
Yeah. So
employees.
that's like, so the 2,200 I put in is actual my staff. My time is free, which I have no idea how many hours I put in on something like this, but
Right,
whatever. I like doing it. So that just kind of goes with the territory. And ultimately, that's kind of how my brother and I work. Our labor is never calculated by the hour. But
right,
um, yes. So an interesting thing about mine, my spreadsheet here is the bulk flip. So is it true? Yes, we had to process 14,000 or whatever it was books. Absolutely. But literally 80% of it we're flipping just because it doesn't make sense for us to try to sell it in our auctions. It doesn't make sense to try to sell it on eBay. It's long boxes of just stuff, and there's a market for that too, but I'm not the end user on that as a dealer even. That gets passed on to guys that do shows that have dollar boxes and things like that, and you know you're flipping that stuff at an extremely cheap rate. So that also cuts down on labor, getting rid of it that way.
right.
Um,
I think a lot of people, and this is something that we should probably look into actually, is I think a lot of people watching this right now would like access to these bulk boxes. And,
Absolutely.
we might be able to, I mean, I don't know. It's where do you sell these bulk boxes? Is it eBay or you do the proxy, do it on
Mm,
proxy?
No, actually, I just have guys. It's all
Oh,
private.
gotcha.
I have a list of two or three or four guys that are constantly, hey, you got any more boxes of comics? And there's kind of like a standard rate of the going rate, and they go through and pick out whatever little cherries they want out of the deal, and they take it to flea markets and shows and things like that. A lot of them also use it. They're working on 100 different runs. So, and my bulk boxes are probably better than the next guy's, and yours are probably better than mine. So it just depends. And every deal's different too. Some of them, the bulk boxes are like, wow, there's a ton of stuff in here. And then other
Right,
ones, not so much. It just depends on
right.
what it is.
All right. Well, if you're watching this and that might be you, you're interested in bulk boxes, reach out to me or to Don, and we'll keep a list, and maybe we'll just have an email list, and hopefully we'll get some more collections. I mean, so let me just ask you though on this one, did it go the way you thought it would, or was it maybe not as good as you thought it was, or
So it was like, to me, if this collection would have been in like Ohio and not Texas, which would an Ohio drive might have been a few hours, depending on where it was, I would have been pretty happy with this. And I'm still happy with this deal. It's fine. But like the amount of hours, this was a 6-day trip. And it wasn't just this one. You do maybe I don't, I'm sure I told you this, but when we decided we were going to do this, I was already going to go to Texas anyway to look at a collection in Houston. I went all the way across the state from Houston to El Paso, which they're on opposite sides of the state, and then all the way back to Michigan driving. So there's nothing factored in for that, but there was some upside potential in it, and it didn't quite work out as exactly maybe what I would hoped for, but still I was generally speaking, I was happy with it. I think it would have been closer, which that's no fault of anyone's. It just happened to be that way. If it would have been closer, it would have been more lucrative.
what is your process for valuing a massive raw book collection when you get a spreadsheet like we did on this one, which was just a PDF with 17,500 books? What is your process for coming up with a value that you think we can sell it for? And what do you think causes the disparity but that we see so often, and rightfully so, between what the collector thinks the collection is worth and what we can actually sell it for?
I think probably one of the biggest disparities when you're using one of these apps, like I don't remember what Frank's was on. He had it on CLZ. Is that what it is?
Well, we got
CLZ
an
posted.
exported list, and then but we made the offer before we had any kind of app or anything.
No, for
But
sure.
yeah,
But he had it on that app. And as far as the disparity part of it, whatever website that was, like mycomiccollection.com or whatever you want to call it, they put a value of every single Legion of Superheroes number 343 is listed as a $4 book.
right,
And when you get to the grant, sure, they have ASM 300 listed as 800 or 1,000 or whatever they put on it. And of course, as a raw book, that may or may not be realistic based on the condition. But under no circumstances, no matter what the condition is Legion 347 worth $4. And
right,
what happens is guys that put their stuff in these spreadsheets, they get to the end and they hit grand total, and it spits out a number of $265,000. But what it doesn't say is 94% of those books are listed at $4 a book, and I'm going to sell them for 40 or $50 a long box. You know what I mean? So I'm getting
right,
25 cents a piece for those.
right.
And I
So
think that's the biggest disparity in using a software program, or what people, no one just goes in with pencil and paper and figures out their comic collection as a collector uh, with using a realistic mindset. Like, okay, I know these are all dollar books, even though that would be better than what most people do, and I understand why they do it. It's an organization thing more than anything, using those software programs. But I think when you get into guys who have that much organization, like Frank did, and everything's laid out, you can throw the number out the window on 85-90% of that stuff. It's dollar books that no one's going to pay you 50 cents for in bulk. That's my opinion, at least.
Right. So it's just a case by case basis, and there's no way around it. You just have to put in the hours and spend time with the spreadsheets and just do
Absolutely.
the
And
work.
that your first part of that question, asking me how do I go about processing it, kind of just like anybody else, I'm looking at the spreadsheet. I'm going to cherry pick all the keys first and try to put in my due diligence of, all right, first of all, I have to take you at face value of what the grade is. But like, all right, you have a ASM 194 and you have it listed as VF. I'm going to look and see what currently an ASM 194 in VF is selling for raw. And I'm going to go through and do all the highlights first. Then I can go to, all right, let's stay in ASM. I've pulled out mentally or on making notes, not just pulled them out physically, but I've pulled out all the keys and assessed what they should sell for if they're in the value or in the grade that they're supposed to be. Now I'm going to say, okay, these are all 12-cent Spideys that aren't keys, and they have an average grade of VG to VG fine. Now I'm going to see kind of what the going rate is on all the Silver Age stuff. And then I'm going to move to the Bronze Age stuff, and I'm going to take averages. I'm going to say, okay, Frank's got 42 non-key 12 and 15 cent ASMs with an average grade of VG. Average price on those raw is $25. Do the math. Now I kind of know at that point. And that's how I would basically go through a whole collection like that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we did this video, and I'm glad, I mean, it took a long time to even just to get the numbers, but because as a collector, I completely understand why somebody that has their whole collection in cover price, it's spitting out $200,000, why they think an offer of 50 grand is they're getting ripped off. I totally understand that.
yeah,
But this kind of sheds a little bit more light on it, you guys. You have the numbers here of what we actually walked with and what actually went into it. Because I think this one was around 200 in cover price or something. I can't remember
gotcha.
exactly, but
And I
something
never
like
even
that.
saw what they put, what he put down as a price.
Which is awesome because I that we you still made the offer that made sense even without that
Yeah,
information.
right, for sure.
You nailed it on this one because I mean it was a little narrow, but I like that. I like that it was narrow because we can show with full transparency, hey,
Sure,
we're offering fair prices, so
absolutely.
unless you want to make a full-time job out of selling comics, which you can join us, you guys. This is a lot of fun. We're living the dream over here,
Right.
right?
Yep.
But a lot of people just don't have any interest in that. I mean, you see all the shipping boxes behind you that would
Oh my
just get
God.
so
Right. That's just one wall, man. I have many more every single size of shipping box I have here.
yeah. Right on. Well, hey, thanks for doing this. I'm really looking forward to the next two that we've got coming up the one we've been working on for a long time and the new one. Some
Yeah.
exciting stuff coming down the pike, guys, and check
Absolutely. They
out
get way juicier, guys.
yeah, yeah. And check out that proxy bid and the links down below. There's some cool. I'm going to be keeping an eye on. You said you just got some Civil War memorabilia stuff and just cool stuff. So I'm
Got one
looking forward to
running
that.
right as we speak. I'm sure after this airs, it'll already be over. But yeah, we have one ending tomorrow night that's all coins and sports cards, which is an odd mixture.
All right. Well, hey, thanks.
Yeah,
We'll hopefully we'll do this again. Hopefully it won't be another 6 months.
sounds good. Thanks, Bry.
So thank you once again to Frank. It was an absolute joy working with you on your collection. Thank you so much to Dawn for making all of this possible. I'm so excited for you guys to see the next two deals that we're currently working on and any possible future deals to come. Don't forget those two giveaways we have. If you subscribe, comment, and like, you're entered to win a free slab here on the YouTube channel. And sign up for that newsletter, brycecomics.com, because there's tons of awesome vintage comics coming your way soon. Thanks as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.